morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at a new Scrafty card. Now, generally speaking, ladies and gentlemen, Scrafty is not a Pokemon for whom I've got very much love, either as a design or in the Pokemon trading card game. But this one could be kind of fun. In fact, I think it might be the best Scrafty ever. But please don't take that as some kind of like gigantic boast. There's never been a good Scrafty card. There's one in Shining Legends that could do 70 to a basic after you've already evolved, so they probably have two. There was the one that came out in Furious Fist that could do 150 for 2 Darkness Energy. 1 in 8 times. I'm going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. Scrafty is not exactly a powerhouse in the TCG. But I do kind of like this one. So, what does it do? Well, our translation comes from the lovely David Hockman over at Rappelman TCG. And if we have a look at the basics, I don't like the basics. We got 110 HP, which is right up there with basics like Zapdos. Cool. You got as much HP as a not even that bulky basic. I mean, stuff like Buzzwole got 130. Oh, speaking of Buzzwole, you've got a weakness to fighting. And with lightning decks like Pikachu and Zekrom being great at the moment, you probably don't want a fighting weakness because fighting counters it. So that's really bad. Retreat cost of 2 is not high enough to use buff padding, but not low enough to use stuff like a skateboard. You just don't want a retreat cost of 2 or 3 at the moment. 0 is great, 1 is fine, 4 is great sometimes, 2 and 3 is bad. And being a Darkness Pokemon, well, we've lost Devoured Field, so you don't get the extra 10 damage anymore. And we do have Night City now, which gives you free retreat if you're a basic, which it's not. Yeah, we do have Black Market Prism Star, which means you'll only give up, well, no prizes if you get KO'd, but how often do you play Black Market Prism Star and it actually works? Very, very rarely. Now, in terms of weakness, the good news is you can get a KO on something like a Mimikyu and Gengar, and then even as the game wears on, that will all become clear in a moment, you can even be taking out stuff like Giratina, and Malamar decks are playing those kind of cards at the moment, so at least you're hitting a decent weakness. But that's about it. But we do have an attack here that's kind of cool. For 2 colorless energy, you do 20 damage, plus 20 more for each of your remaining prize cards. Which means if you've yet to take a prize, you can sit there and smash for 140 damage. Which is awesome. Although, like so many of the cards we're looking at, and these cards are going to be coming out in Unified Minds. The one I'm looking at the moment, we're talking Unified Minds cards, which becomes legal for tournament play the day after the rotation hits. And that means that we've got to look at this in a post-rotation world. And there are 2 cards that we are losing to the rotation, maybe even 3, that turn this Scrafty from, oh my goodness, yes, to, really? And those cards are double colorless energy, choice band, and potentially devoured field. You see, if double colorless energy weren't rotating, this would be a single energy attack. And 140 for 1 energy attachment is awesome. And if choice band wasn't rotating, instead of doing 140, you'd be doing 170. And that's huge, because you've got stuff like Tapu Lele, you've got stuff like Dedenne. And then, of course, Devoured Field puts it up to 180, and then you're getting stuff like Blacephalon and stuff like Rayquaza. And now we're looking really tasty. I love this. Pre-rotation. Which, incidentally, we're never going to have. Japan has this format at the moment. Japan will have this in a pre-rotation format. So for Japan, that's brilliant. That's lovely. That's wonderful. That's grand. But not for us. If you're giving me a stage 1 Pokemon where I can go first, and then on my second turn, the first time I'm allowed to attack, I can go double colorless energy, choice band, 1-hit KO on a Tapu Lele for 2 prizes, I don't care what happens for the rest of the game, I've got my money's worth. But as it stands at the moment, without those cards, you need that second energy. And fine, it's only 2 energy, but that's awkward. Now, to be fair, it is colourless energy, so there's nothing to stop you putting this into a Malamar deck, or playing it with Welder and Fighting energy. And then you can accelerate the energy, and then you can be using this nice and easily, and life is good. And it's a way of hitting for a darkness weakness without having to play a darkness deck. And in terms of hitting for darkness weakness with colourless energy, this is one of the best options we've got. Now, imagine you're playing against something like a Mimikyu and Gengar, or a Malamar deck that's playing it. Mimikyu and Gengar is a punishing card. They can look at your hand for 2 energy and do 50 damage for each trainer card in your hand. That's a lot of damage. They're getting a lot of KOs. And here's the thing, you don't need to show them your hand here. Not until they're actually using the attack. So you can bench a Ditto Prism Star, which will survive the rotation. And now, all of a sudden, you can wait till they bench a Mimikyu and Gengar, evolve Ditto into this, and then either Welder or Malamar, get it rolling, and then take 3 prizes. And if you can do that, you are absolutely having a great time here. And that is how this works. That is how you make hay with this. It needs to really be dropped as a surprise, because if you're putting it in a non-darkness deck and you bench a Scraggy, safe to say your opponent's just going to take it out. Although, to be fair, we're losing most of our good gusting options like Guzma, so maybe they won't be able to. So that, I think, is a niche for this attack. I think it needs to be Welder or Malamar or some other energy acceleration. You're worried about a darkness weak Pokemon. This hits for colourless energy, and in that regard, I really like it. If we had those other pre-rotation cards, I'd love this attack. As it is, it's quite techable. Think of something like Onyx. Now, I know Onyx is a basic, but Onyx also takes 4 energy. Onyx is teched into a whole bunch of decks, so that it can hit weakness on something like a Pikachu and Zekrom. So I don't see why this wouldn't be teched into decks to hit for weakness. Now, one of the main reasons at the moment is that Gengar and Mimikyu does not see as much play as Pikachu and Zekrom. But firstly, it's still really good, and secondly, there's nothing to say we're not going to get other Darkness Weak Pokemon in the next couple years, until this rotates, which aren't also going to be awesome. Now, we do need to talk about remaining prizes here, because everything I've said about Scrafty so far applies to the early game. As soon as you've started taking a few prizes, this gets worse and worse and worse. Because you see, after you've knocked out a regular Pokemon, now you've only got 5 prizes remaining, you're hitting 120. If you knock out a GX, you've only got 4 prizes remaining, you're hitting 100. And if you knock out a Tag Team GX, you've only got 3 prizes remaining, you're hitting 80. Now, to be fair, 80 is still going to get a fairly easy one-hit KO on a Giratina. Although, annoyingly, if you take another prize and you're hitting for 60, you'll be 10 damage short. I often talk about the difference between hitting 120 and 130. This is a nice example of why that's so important. But don't forget that there are a few Pokemon out there that can actually give you an extra prize card. So look at something like Xurkitree GX, for instance, which puts a card from your hand as an extra prize card. That will mean you're actually now not doing 140, you're doing 160, which is really good. That's the Dene range here, which is nice. So you can actually get a bit of love going on if your opponent's doing that. The other one is the second Naganadel GX, which has a very similar GX attack, except it takes a card from your discard and puts it as a face-down prize card, rather than Xurkitree, which takes it from your hand. Oh, there is a second attack here, but the second attack sucks. Darkness, 2 colourless, 70 damage. I mean, look, earlier today we looked at Yveltal that does 120 for essentially the same cost now that double colourless energy is rotated. And that's a basic. So yeah, that's quite a bit better. Also worth pointing out here that if you've got at least 3 prizes remaining, you're actually doing more damage with the first attack for less energy. For at least half the game, you're doing better for less energy. So no, ladies and gentlemen, no. Don't worry about the second attack, worry about the first attack. And I like the first attack. If it wasn't for colourless energy, I wouldn't like it anywhere near as much, but it is. Unfortunately, if it was pre-rotation, I'd like it a bit more, but it's not. I still think it's a between 3 and 4 Wassy card. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. I can see this making it into some decks with some energy acceleration. The one caveat to this is, if no one's playing Darkness Week Pokemon, this is never going to be good. But if no one's, you can't legislate for that. This is going to be legal for a couple of years. We'll see what happens. I would, however, like to see what you think about this. So do please let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.